Mission.
Hi, this is Persinger. I'm the gun guy. Thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Listen, I've got some stuff to lay before you here for your consideration because I don't know whether it's accurate or not. The other day I was at the range and I was shooting my M1, which you've probably seen in videos before. I really enjoy shooting it, and I did get a chance to shoot it quite a lot. This is arguably, without question, one of my favorite, if not my favorite rifle. And Fulton Armory really went through this rifle for me and made it like a brand new rifle by the time I got it back. While I was shooting at the range, I ran into an old gentleman who was probably 20 years older than me, and I already consider myself approaching old guy status, so he was quite a bit older than me. Former Marine, if there is such a thing. I think Marines are always Marines, but he had been in the Corps and now he's not anymore. And at one point he had shot competitively with the Garand at Camp Perry and other places, and he was giving me some information about the Garand, or Garand, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and some interesting little tidbits. Now, he told me a lot, and it's too much for this video, but I just want to point out 3 things to you that he told me, because I'm curious what your thoughts are about them. One is he told me, first of all, he was very gracious and very polite, and he asked me if it was okay if he told me some things that I was doing incorrectly, and I said, no, please, I want to learn. So the first thing he told me is that I was loading the clips backwards. Now, when he said backwards, I think he just meant incorrectly, in the sense that if you look at the clip, I have my first round on the left. And he said, it'll function that way. I mean, it'll run that way. You can load them that way and it'll work. But it will work better if the first round at the top of the round is on the right. And the way these are done, there's 4 rounds on either side of the clip, so it doesn't matter. If the top one is on the left here, the top one's going to be on the left here. It's just the way it works. But you can just as easily load it with the top round, first round, on the right. He said the reason for that is that way it will feed more easily when you load it and when you reload it, because as the bolt closes, the extractor and the bolt face rides right straight forward, and the extractor can just grab a hold of the round as it goes in, and it just seems to feed a lot better that way. So he said he was always taught to have the first round be on the right rather than the left. And again, I don't know whether that's correct or not. I do know that it ran perfectly and has run perfectly with it, whichever way I loaded them. But you know what? I trust the old guy, and so I'm going to start loading them with the first round, top round being on the right. Now, if you know differently, or you know something about that, let me know, because as I've said many times, I'm kind of new to the whole Garand thing. I know a little bit about them, and I know I enjoy shooting them, but I'm by no means a gunsmith or historian, and I'm certainly not old enough to have ever used one in combat, and in any case, I'm not a veteran. So there you go. I don't have any credentials here. I'm just sharing with you what this gentleman told me. There was 2 more items, basically, that I thought were very interesting. When I had this sitting on the rest and shooting it, I had the rest kind of sitting here. And he said that it would be better if I actually supported the rifle between these 2 bands right here. He said I wanted to support the rifle where I would normally support it with my support hand when shooting it standing. So just think about it that way. Wherever I would grab the rifle or support the rifle, that's where I want to have it supported. So one of the reasons why is the wood here is not meant to carry weight. This piece of wood, according to him, is primarily there to protect the gas tube underneath during combat. So if you end up in a bayonet charge, or you end up in hand-to-hand combat or something, and the other fella has a rifle or something big too, he doesn't dent your gas tube and cause your rifle to be completely non-functional in the middle of that fight. And then you're standing there in the middle of a fight, even though maybe you've prevailed over that fella and you've killed him. Guess what? He's killed you too, just not immediately, because now your rifle no longer functions. And that this was put on here specifically to do that, to protect the gas tube. It was not meant to be supported or grabbed with the hand. I don't know, but I thought it was interesting. Now, the third thing he told me, which I thought was interesting and I had never heard before, was that this rifle, which has a milled trigger guard as opposed to a stamped one. Now, I've seen M1s with both stamped trigger guards and milled trigger guards, and I don't really know why, except for what this gentleman told me. I just figured that after a while they didn't want to mill them anymore. It was easier to stamp them, and they were trying to crank them out for the war. But this fellow said, no, that's not the case. The difference is the rifles with the milled trigger guards were sent to colder climates, where the rifles with the stamped trigger guards were sent to the jungle and warmer climates, because in the colder climates, the soldiers wore gloves, and sometimes if they had winter gear, the gloves were heavy and thick, and it was hard for them to get their trigger inside the trigger guard to press the trigger, so they couldn't get their finger in there. Instead, they had a little device that would attach to this hole in the back of the trigger guard, which allowed them to press on the device here, which pressed the trigger, and allow them to shoot the gun pressing here, rather than having to stuff their heavily gloved finger inside the trigger guard. Well, now, I got to tell you, that could be a fanciful tale. Maybe he was pulling my leg. But it actually sounds like a pretty darn good idea. So now I'm curious if such a device actually exists or ever did exist. So those are the three little things that this old fella told me on the range. And he seemed to be very genuine about it. He did not seem to be pulling my leg, although it's possible. So I lay those three things before you. I'm curious what you think, and if you happen to know if any of those things are actually true. Let me know in the comments, would you? I love this rifle and I enjoy shooting it. The more I learn, the more I want to learn. They are fabulous rifles. If you've never had one or shot one, I encourage you, if you get an opportunity, get one or at least shoot a buddy's, because they are a piece of history and they're a wonderful rifle. And this one, after Fulton Armory got done with it, pretty much is almost like a brand new rifle. It functions like a brand new. In fact, I'm going through the break-in period with the rifle and breaking it in the way they gave me the instructions to do. So I'm treating it like it's a brand new rifle for a reason. So there you are, my little tidbits about the M1 Garand. Now it's up to you to let me know whether they're true. Thank you very much for watching. Please support the channel on Patreon if you wouldn't mind. I'd sure appreciate it. And shop on our online store. Use our link for Amazon. All of those things will help us a ton. And if you have a home defense gun or a gun that you carry all the time and you're worried about if you ever have to shoot somebody to defend yourself, the legal aftermath, I encourage you to sign up for Second Call Defense. That's the company I use to give me legal backup for me and my family, and that's why I recommend them to you. The links for all of those things are in the description. And once again, I thank you very much for watching. I'm really curious to see what your responses are where this thing is concerned, because I'd love to know. Have a great week. Have a wonderful Christmas. And please, be safe.